Great.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. And, you know, this is our fourth night of the book launch. And so I'm very happy to be here and, you know, thankful to be on the team, thankful to have participated in the journey of writing the book. And I actually going to get started. Let's sort of transition into our evening here today. And, you know, my chapter in the book is trying to bring stuff together. So it's bringing all the previous chapters into application. And what does that look like with a real client, with a real case study. And tonight, what I'm going to try to do is actually bring two things together. So actually cover a little bit about Catherine's chapter, who wrote about crisis management. And also to cover a little bit my part, which was a case study and bringing everything together. So you're gonna see a little bit of both tonight. And before we get going, maybe what we wanna do is just, if you could put yourself on mute, we're gonna have parts of our night when, you know, we can ask questions, but it's a good idea to put stuff on mute so that we can have a better quality. And also if you can turn off your cameras until we are kind of sharing screen and presenting, and then we'll bring everybody back. That will be better for, again, the recording. Thank you so much. And, you know, typically when you start a presentation like this, I think, yeah, we still have two cameras on, Edith and JF. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah. So, you know, typically when you start something like this, you're actually going to have to say, well, imagine a time when we are in crisis. But at this point, fortunately or unfortunately, who is to say, right? That's kind of the generative part here. You know, we don't really have to imagine being in a crisis because we are in some kind of a crisis. So what I wanted to do today, amongst other things, is also cover a little bit about, you know, what's going on around and what are some best practices that I gathered from other people, you know, basically business leaders and entrepreneurs that I have been working with. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and it's going to probably take a moment until you will see the full screen. And, you know, often the question is, so what do you do in crisis, right? Because what is crisis? Let's define what is crisis. So crisis is something like an unstable or dangerous situation which is affecting individuals, groups, communities, whole society, humanity. And crisis is often deemed to be a negative change because it threatens security, it alters our economy, you know, it creates political waves, societal, big society level movements, and you're dealing with big environmental affairs, and all of this is unpredictable. There's no warning, there's no way to prepare. So there's some negativity around crisis. So just as we dive into this presentation tonight, I wanted to invite you to use one of the tools that we have, which is, you know, what is still stable, what is still available for us to hold on to. And that's our center. So why don't we start with some centering tonight? And, you know, a lot of you have participated in many of the generative change programs. So you might have your own way of getting back to your center. But I'm just going to take a very simple exercise for all of us. And, you know, please come with me. And any centering for me, it often starts with checking in with our breathing. So why don't we all check in with our breathing as we are breathing in and breathing out, and making the breath longer as we are breathing out. And then just checking in with our conscious mind and imagining the mind as kind of a lake, and dropping a pebble, a small stone, a small rock into that lake. And then silence. Breathing in, breathing out, and silence. And then bringing our breath to our heart and checking in with the heart, breathing in, breathing out. And then dropping the idea of spaciousness into our heart. A heart that can encompass and accept and embrace so much. And then just bringing our breath into our gut, all the way down. And breathing out, and just dropping the suggestion of stillness into our body. Silence, stillness, and spaciousness. And then in our own pace, just coming back here and continue with the train of thought that we started, which is crisis. So what does it take to survive crisis, you could ask? And this is one of the things that we talk about in the crisis chapter. And a great source is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is a Hungarian American living in California. And he has numerous books, but he talks about 3 things that you need in order to operate a good, stable, thriving business. And those are very fundamental things. So one is trust. The second is a commitment to foster personal growth of the employees. So not just the growth of the business, but the employees. And then a dedication to creating a product that can help mankind. So this idea of, we are connected, we are part of a system. And during a moment of crisis, to be able to remind yourself that your product or your service actually has a benefit for mankind is a really powerful way to stay resilient. There are 3 other factors which Daniel Pink identified. And this time, he's looking at it from the point of view of employees, right? So how do you increase performance? How do you increase motivation? And these are also extremely relevant through crisis. So he says, autonomy, we all desire to be self-directed. So we need some autonomy, and we need to feel that we are in charge. Mastery, which kind of resonates with the previous points, the feel that we all want to get better. And so if through this company, if through this business, if through surviving this crisis, I'm going to learn something, I'm going to master perhaps some new skills, that will be very motivational. And then they mentioned purpose. So the desire to get connected to something that has meaning. So it's not just the pain, but the pain has some kind of a meaning. It's going to lead somewhere. And I know what that is, and it is something that I desire. So those are kind of 2 point of views from these 2 amazing people, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and Daniel Pink. I wanted to also give you some best practices that I have heard, just talking to leaders that I have been working with. So my practice is, my name is Feher, and I'm, part of the leadership team for SFM. I'm also one of the co-founders of the MindsetMap tools with Robert. And I'm also a generative consultant and coach, and I've been working with big size and medium sized companies as well as lots of individuals, leaders. And so the following that I kind of brought here together, this is just a collection of things that I heard from many people. So one thing that I heard repeatedly is drop the armor. So be vulnerable and brave at the same time, which is kind of counterintuitive because, you know, in crisis, the initial reaction is I need to protect myself. So I need to put on my armor and I need to be able to defend myself. And one of the things that we find is when you put on armor, when you put on masks and you pretend that you're unaffected, that you know everything, it has a counter effect on people because they kind of feel that you're not authentic. So there's a way to be vulnerable and to admit that I don't know, and I'm curious to find out what's going to happen, and be brave at the same time. I'm willing to find out. I'm willing to investigate further. So this kind of goes to the point, don't be a knower, but be the learner. And I don't know, you know, what your experience is, but most of us leaders or people who have been leaders before, especially people who are in CEO suites and in boards, we are brought up to be knowers. You got to know all the time. And interestingly, again, every charismatic leader who is able to build sustainable change often talks about this idea of, you know, don't be a knower, just be a learner. You know, one way that I really like that they put it is never answer a question that you don't understand. So always go until you understand and be willing to admit. Share if you don't know. And, you know, one way of sharing is to say, this is the data we have in, this is the data we have about our customers, this is the data we have about the market, this is the data we have about COVID, you know, here is how we are making sense of it today. And nobody knows. Nobody knows more than what we know today. And it's okay. Again, makes a big difference. During these times, showing gratitude and celebrate, you know, whereas it's blaming and shaming, obviously, is a huge game changer. So a lot of leaders that I'm talking to and have managed to keep their teams motivated and ready for actions, they start their meetings with sharing gratitude. So what are you grateful about this week? And everyone shares. So simple practices like that, again, make a big difference. If you have to make reductions, you know, people have to let staff go, you know, positions disappear, you have to save costs, you know, this is happening. People fight that, but if you do have to make reductions, do it with the utmost dignity, respect, and transparency. Because we often forget that actually we are teaching the organization as we let somebody go, we are teaching all the people who stay, you know, how we walk the talk. What is our true culture? How are we really true to our values or not? Another point that I heard is to be explicit. So don't make up stuff. Don't dunk the questions. I don't know if, you know, some of you may have seen the vice presidential debate last night in the United States, where, you know, where the two vice president candidates had a discussion. Several times there would be a question and the answer had absolutely nothing to do with the question, nothing. Now, so the idea is just don't think that people will not notice. So if you're a corporate executive and you have your people on Zoom and you're giving a presentation about what's going on and you get a question, don't dunk the question because that's going to be even worse. Be explicit, admit that you're going and finding out the answer and so on. The other point, which I heard many, many times, is building a culture that supports bravery. So this idea that we celebrate bravery, and bravery is not being afraid. We are all worried. We are all concerned. We're concerned about our family. We're concerned about our business. but we are brave. We keep moving, and we celebrate those people who are brave. And again, as much as you can have sharing gratitude practices, what are you grateful for, you can also collect moments of bravery in the organization and then share that in meetings. Amazingly good. One thought that I wanted to share is that, is this a crisis or is this a marathon that we're going through? So, this particular crisis is an extended crisis. And normally, the way we're wired as humans and animals is in crisis, you have high adrenaline, and that helps you to get through it. But in a marathon, you got to know that you can't go through this in crisis mode, because crisis mode is extremely costly in terms of energy and effort. So if you are in crisis mode all the time, you're going to burn out in no time. So this is a marathon, and therefore re-energizing, reconnecting to passion, reconnecting to purpose, reminding to our vision, reminding to the long game is huge. Otherwise, you will not run the marathon. And, one other way to think about this is, in a crisis, you're on the playfield and you're constantly getting the ball, okay? And you need to be quick, but not too quick. So in crisis, you want to settle the ball first. You want to look around. You want to look up. Who is out there? Who can I pass? Who can I pass to? So you're thoughtful, strategic, and then you quit. Then you make that quick. So kicking when you get it immediately is not working, not in a crisis. And then a final suggestion is, come up with some kind of a decision filter. I heard this from, again, many CEOs, that we sat down with my leadership team, and we came up with 3 questions that we always want to ask before we make any decision. And there were, this is an example of 3 questions that I heard. Is this appropriate? Is this authentic? So what we are about to do right now, is this going to be appropriate? Is this authentic? Are we honest? The second question is, what we are about to do, is this in service of our customers? How is this going to serve our customers? And the third one is, are we being honest and transparent as we are announcing this, as we are, sending this out, as we are sending this letter, as we are communicating something to our team? So again, simple, but in my mind, these are very useful. And I just wanted to share this because I heard it from, it's kind of a collection, a bouquet of ideas. Now, the other thing that our book is about, or in particular the crisis chapter, we are talking a little bit about this leadership model, which I will not introduce at this point. This is the conscious leadership model from SFM3, and some of you are familiar with that. And there are 2 interesting quotes which we all love and we share in the book. One is, from Lao Tse, who says, the worst leader is the people who is the one that people despise, right? Then there's a good leader whom people worship. And then there's the great leader who makes people say, well, we did it ourselves. It was us. So this is this idea of the servant leadership. And then, oops, one jump. The other one is from Simon Sinek, who said, leadership is not being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those who are in your charge. So, these are ideas and concepts and principles that we believe in. And, I wanted to, put a few more useful thoughts up here that help us to reframe crisis, because, one of the things we might want to do is really maintain our positivity. And, we have to remember that we need to kind of balance between the head and the heart. sometimes, you know, when you see somebody who is trying to really bring you down and is really annoying, you know, you can remind yourself that, well, you know, if he's bringing me down, he's already below me. So that's good. And, you know, you can always reframe the I can do it to the I can frame. Now, these are things that we all know, but as a generative consultant, you know, the real life sets in. And you got to go to companies that are going through really tough periods. And, you know, sometimes it can feel like this, you know, that you're standing there with this umbrella of positivity and your reframe. But the thing is, you know, there's a big rock that's just about to drop on your head or on the head of that company. And so how am I going to help this company? What am I going to do? So what I wanted to take you through is basically a case study that my company went through with one of our customers. And this is what you will read in the book as well, in way more detail, obviously. So here it's just going to be a high level overview. And I wanted to highlight, you know, where generative coaching and consulting made a big difference. So let's start with the brief. And you will see that the brief is a very usual brief and doesn't have anything to do with generativity and purpose. So, you know, this particular multinational company was a American-Swedish company, and they were having issues in cohesiveness in the leadership team, different cultures, different understandings. So they wanted more cohesiveness. That was the brief. They wanted to get rid of the legacy thinking. They wanted to get rid of the silo thinking, which is another thing that we hear all the time, right? That, you know, people are stuck in their little silos. They wanted to have more clarity about, you know, what is the right management practice. So what is the way they expect to lead company or people in this company. And they wanted to turn people into good coaches. Ultimately, you know, the guy said, look, you know, the most important thing for me out of all of this is increase sales. I want to reduce the sales cycle because our people are, you know, going through very long sales cycles, and I want to increase the conversion rate. And by the way, this company was in sustainable energy. Okay, so we got that brief. And so what do we make of this? And we said, well, first of all, you know, in generativity, there's the inside out principle. So before we start fixing the people, the team, it's interesting to think about the individuals and in particular about the person who manages this team. Because as much as we say that it's great to have bottom-up initiatives, but change or issues and symptoms typically come down from the top because they, you know, the leader is such a strong component of the system that if they are in a certain kind of way stuck, it will have an effect on everybody. We also felt, you know, based on the discussions that we had, that there are multiple conflicting goals because on one hand side, it seems like the most important goal for John, who was the CEO of this, managing director of this company, was to scale the business and build more robust processes for sales. At the same time, I had the feeling whenever I met him that he wasn't finding any personal satisfaction in what he was doing. And that was something that was clearly visible to me. And if it's visible to me, I guess it's visible for the rest of the team. He was not conscious of the goal. In other words, he was not conscious that he has a problem with his personal satisfaction. At least he didn't want to admit it. So I thought that before we get going, his coaching is going to be a crucial part. And it will have to be something that carries through the whole process. But that wasn't something that he wanted, right? So we had to convince him. Why would we start with him? And it's very sensitive, as you all know, because typically the person who brings you in thinks that, you know, he's all okay and everyone else isn't. And your job is to fix everyone else to his standard. So to propose to somebody that you need to change is a hard one. And so the idea was, we're going to appeal to his strategic mind and pride, and we'll say, look, you're such a crucial visionary, not only in this company, but in the industry, which is, by the way, true. He's a well-known person in sustainable energy. So your clarity, your vision, your purpose is everything, because that's what people follow. So would you mind if we started with that, just to make sure that, you know, this is extremely clear? And he said, you know, I think I'm very clear, but let's do that. By the way, just a quick mention of our competencies. You know, we only just started, you know, the process. We're discussing a brief, we're kind of diagnosing, right? Right at the beginning of the process. But already you can appreciate we need relational skills to build rapport with John, to be able to even bring this up. We need pattern detection skills to see that, you know, his issues are spiraling down into the organization. We need emotional intelligence to pick up his feelings, which are kind of hidden behind his words. We need our systemic intelligence to know that you can't look at and fix one part of the system without fixing the, you know, some of the crucial elements, such as the CEO. And it's not fixing, it's just a system of interrelations. And you need influencing skills. So all that is there. So then another one that you probably know, and a lot of you know this image, you know, this is how we think in SFM, that the mindset is crucial. So his actions and his outcomes, what he's achieving and what his organization is achieving, is heavily influenced by his mindset. So therefore, I asked myself, and this is, by the way, how our success mindset map is built on this notion. You know, there are 5 goals, 5 key goals that an executive or an entrepreneur may have. And so the first question was, you know, he tells me, I want to build more scalable business, but I see that he's craving for satisfaction, which he doesn't have. So, you know, that was the first thing. And what I said to him, look, we have a tool that we built. Would you like to fill out a mindset map, which is going to tell us, you know, where to start? And, you know, that way it's not me observing him and saying, I think that's your issue. That way, you know, we are actually using a tool, a questionnaire, which people have trust in, and it leads us to a certain outcome. So I wanted to show you, you know, what I did is I first said to him, fill out the mindset map inventory. And let's just take your goal. You said you want to build a more scalable business. So we were looking at his results, and here you see, you know, some comparisons. And, you know, what you see here is the things that, so this is the ideal mindset that is necessary for building a scalable business. And he's got, you know, a lot of the things that are necessary for that. He was actually very good in terms of scaling and building. That was no issue with that. But, you know, there are certain things that are circled. So there's a red circle here in his actual mindset, and that relates to getting frequent and honest feedback, right? There is another red here, which relates to the sale, which means energy and focus. So if we were going to start our work together based on his notion of my goal is to build a scalable business, we were going to focus on those 2 areas, because that's where the mindset map is pointing to. So then, you know, we had a big discussion, and we went through the mindset map questionnaire together again, because that's what we do as coaches. You know, not only we just give the final results, but we will go through all the answers together. And so it came out pretty quickly that he's dissatisfied and demotivated, and he's having issues with his leaders. So we identified that really he's actually looking for more personal satisfaction out of his work. So then we did the mindset map again. And this time what we saw, this is the mindset map for personal satisfaction. One thing that's really key is passion. And then another thing that's really key is energy, right? Energizing and focusing. And then the third thing is spending time reconnecting with passion and purpose. So that gave us a whole new perspective. And he was willing to talk about things that he wouldn't have otherwise wanted to include in this work. Because now here is this tool, and the tool is set up in such a way that it gives you the ideal mindset based on very, very successful purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So you kind of listen, okay, so let's, if the purpose is something and a passion that we need to work on, let's work on it. So I kind of eased my way into something very touchy, and he was very accepting. So that was a big thing for us, that we were able to work on his purpose and his vision first before we started working with the rest of the organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use our time here to take you through the steps of the generative consulting process. Again, it's something to read, but I just going to do a sort of high-level overview. So the first step in the consulting process is defining our present state. So where do we start from? And you have already seen that, one really useful thing was the success mindset map there, because we now knew where we start with John, and we were able to do some clarification with his personal vision and purpose. And he essentially, by the way, realized that he wants to move on. His vision is that he's going to want to not work in a business, but be an investor in sustainable energy. And so his goal is to build a legacy in this company, find his successor, and create a well-oiled machine that's going to run without him. So that's a major difference to where we started from, right? But it was very useful because he calmed down, he got very clear, he got very focused, and he knew what to do. We've used personality profiles to map out the team members. I'm not going to get deeply into that. We've done in-depth interviews and focus groups with different levels in the organization to get an idea of how people look at the leadership team. So that kind of gave us a pretty good starting picture before we got going. We did the SCORE model. Again, we don't really have a lot of time to get into the details of the SCORE model, but the SCORE model, looks at what I want to bring your attention to. It looks at possible causes behind the symptoms, right? And then it looks at, how do you turn that problem into a desired outcome, and then what resources you can utilize and what effects it will have on the organization. But what was very useful is to think about the inner possible causes of lots of things, like high churn rate in the company. People were, some people were leaving. And, the demotivated first person, MD, came out as one of the very important causes of all that. So as soon as we were able to, even though it meant that he was going to leave the organization, it created tremendous clarity and lots of authenticity. He didn't announce that right away, of course, but he was on a very clear course of actions, which was very useful. So then, the second step of our model is we need to establish a desired state and direction for change. So as I said, John actually realized that he was not connected to his passion and not clear on his purpose. Then he also realized that he wants a legacy, he wants to train a successor, and that's one of his key priorities. We helped him to identify that successor. We've done all the diagnostic work, the personality profiles, which was very helpful, and lots of shadowing with the team. And then we worked on the vision, mission, ambition, role document with him, and then also with the team. And what was interesting is initially we came up for his personal vision and mission and ambition, right? Obviously, this wasn't something that we showed to the team, Then I actually asked John to create his version that, what he would see for the organization. And then we got all the team together, and we've done the same exercise. Where are we going? And then we compared a little bit. John shared some of his own vision and mission ideas, and there was a really good match there. So then you move into action planning and building a critical path. So in our case, it's sort of defining the team vision and purpose through a series of team coaching workshops, connecting company values to their vision, because they already had some values that we didn't have any freedom to get rid of or change. So we wanted to find the connection there. We've looked at, individual objectives and how do you set them accordingly with the company vision and mission. We looked at all the roles again, and how they connect to the vision and to the strengths of each people. We looked at competencies, and we thought about an ongoing coaching system. How we're going to train, some people in HR who can then become sort of an internal coach and teach other people to coach in the organization. And we also developed a best practice sharing process. So this was really crucial, because you remember, they didn't come to us to say, we need purpose, we need vision, we need mission. They came to us by saying, we want cohesiveness and we want better sales results. So we needed to say, how the big picture of work that we propose with vision and purpose is going to relate to those small micro actions and results that they're looking for. So we build basically a sales best practice, from account planning to setting meeting objectives to effective presentation of solutions to all the way to closing and follow up. So that was work that we did with some of their top performing negotiators. We went out, observed what they do, collected the best practice, brought in our own best practice from sales processes that we know work really well, and then created something that we agreed that that's our best practice, that's where we are going. So then, moving into action, the moving into action was actually going through that process of setting purpose and passion, mapping all of their key stakeholders. It was a complicated company. There was a board in Sweden. There was, people in the US. They are on the stock exchange. So lots of complicated expectations from lots of stakeholders. So how do you balance those expectations and their vision? We came up with the vision. We came up with objectives and responsibilities within the team. We had a cultural sensitivity session because we needed to sort of raise awareness of where are the major differences between Swedish culture and American culture. And we've actually used Garrett Hofstad's method. Again, not going to go into that, but there was that. Then we looked at personalities, because we actually believe that, a lot of companies do these cultural sensitivity trainings, but it's not enough. It comes down, there's no Swedish people and American people. There is Mickey and Lotta and Loretta, and so there are individuals behind those boxes. And then we did some cultural change planning session, which was about, okay, so what is the culture that we're building based on our purpose and vision, and based on what we bring to the table. And the output was, we had a quarterly plan with milestones for each person, and basically, we decided that we would have a system of meetings where we were going to review that milestone plan. We also created an internal team of their sales manager and the head of HR, as they were sort of the internal change management team, and we were going to support and coach those people. So you appreciate, the complexity and the balancing act constantly between how do you bring big picture clarity into an organization. And the only way to sell it is to tell them, look, great salespeople are purpose-driven. Purpose-driven salespeople can only work in an organization that has a purpose. Because, you know, if I'm a purpose-driven person and my organization, my business doesn't know its purpose, how do I relate to that? How do I stay? So if you want great sales results and motivated people, you want clarity on purpose. Again, if you want cohesiveness, if you want to go beyond cultural barriers and differences between Sweden and US and France and Germany, you need a common purpose. So people get it, but you really got to be very explicit about selling it. So then, you know, there's a bunch of obstacles and pitfalls. I don't know if you can see that, right? So there, you know, there's lots of practices. I just, you know, want to show a few that we've used. You know, one is to be able to move on all levels of the organization. So you need to be comfortable talking to the CEO, but also talking to, you know, salespeople and sales assistants. You need to be constantly presenting the big picture and remind people the purpose. You know, what is the why? Why are we doing this? Why are we spending time doing this? We've introduced a number of mindfulness and gratefulness practices, you know, beginning of meetings, the way we started today. We've used the 4 perceptual positions, which is a tool that we taught to people. And, you know, they started using that before major decisions as a team. We even used the tetralemma process. Again, no time to talk about it in detail, but the idea there is that there are multiple truths any given time, multiple truths. And so to begin to appreciate that as a leader, you're looking for the one truth, but there isn't such. And how do you deal with that level of uncertainty? So as you appreciate, this company was actually, when I asked John, you know, what phase are you in? He said, well, you know, we are sort of in a transition because, you know, we've just merged 2 companies. We are sort of in a crisis because we have high churn rates and our deals are slow and we are not closing enough. And we would need to be growing. So, you know, the work was actually a real mix of managing transition and managing crisis. How do you note progress? So that's one of the, that's the 6th step for us. And, you know, that's sort of where a lot of programs lack. So this is the time when you have to show that what you're doing is actually affecting something, and you have to prove it in numbers. So, you know, they did have an employee engagement survey, so we aimed for a change there. They had annual churn numbers, you know, how many people leave the organization, so we wanted to reduce that. They had monthly KPI numbers for sales, so we had an easy time there. We had, you know, feedback surveys every quarter, and basically the feedback survey was on people feeding back as to how much value they saw in the coaching and feedback that they got. So I'm gonna sort of run to the 7th step, which was following up and sustaining and deepening practices. And here, you know, we did an ongoing system of quarterly team coachings and just really looking at all these numbers that I showed you before. And we also agreed on this deal management process where we had, you know, all kinds of very specific organizational KPIs, sales KPIs to document what we do and how we achieve it. So I talk too much, and so I'm going to run to this final slide, which said, you know, it's a quote from John, and he said, the biggest takeaway for me from this whole program, he said, I never thought my mindset was something that I could actually reset according to my goals. I always believed that I can make decisions. I have that power, but, you know, my beliefs and my mindset is something unconscious. So this MindsetMap app really helped me to look in the mirror and get clarity. And therefore, you know, I got clarity on how to work with my team as well. So that was our journey, you know, quite a powerful and long journey. I want to invite everybody back here at the end. Maybe some of you need to drop off, I understand. Maybe some of you can stay a little longer. But I'm happy to answer any questions, you know, hear any thoughts. Yeah.
My comment is awesome. Awesome, Mickey. I was just put in, I mean, I read your chapter and I, know that thing, but it just is really truly how you accompany somebody on a journey, not just one person, but the whole organization. So I'm totally impressed. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that.
I don't know if there is someone else who wants to ask any questions.
Maxine or Sergey?
I always have a comment. You know me. Like you, I have been completely dazzled. I've known Mickey a long time. I know what he's been doing, and I'm still breathtaken, completely breathtaken by the beauty of his work and the depth of soul that he brings to it. I always thought he was more procedural than this because that is where he operates, and I'm an options person. Mickey, you were amazing. The depth of understanding of humanity that is in every bit of your work just blows me away. Totally. I hope I'm not being too noisy, but it is just gorgeous. You're a gorgeous human being, and that's what you bring to this. And hopefully all of us bring the best of who we are to whatever intervention we're doing with someone.
Thank you.
Or at least I pray that to be true.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Maxine.
No, thank you. Thank you both. Because you created this model that then draws out the best in everyone. That's what Educare is about.
Right. Right. And that's how I see it as well. It's almost like, creating a pathway. So the mindset map inventory, and by the way, if there is anyone here who hasn't seen the mindset map inventory, you can go to mindset-map.com and you can do it. You can take it. It's free. And it's a pathway. It's helping people who are not experienced talking about these kinds of things, finding a safe way to share with you in a way that they're comfortable, and you can direct the conversation to the root cause without having to explain, where it's coming from. It comes from the best of the best. It comes from research. That's where it's coming from.
Mickey, I noticed one question in the chat.
Yeah.
Is they said they weren't sure if they caught it or not, but was this something you did alone or with your team? And maybe sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this was actually a team of 3 people from our side. Most of the interventions which we did, such as, the team coaching sessions, we often had actually 2 trainers, because I find that if the client is willing to pay for it, it's a really good benefit to them, and it's a benefit to us, obviously, because they can, while one of us is working with the team and conducting an intervention, the other person is observing, and you can pick up a lot of subtle things, which is very hard to pick up if you have to do it. And, you can't do and observe at the same time. You're supposed to, but it's not easy. And then, the third person was sort of like a project manager who was really the procedural guy, keeping and organizing everything and sending out reports and inviting people. So it was a team of 3.
How large a team do you actually have?
Well,
as a given business? I have no idea what your business is like.
So, right now in the US, since COVID, it's a team of 5 people, and we are freelancers, but I used to have actually people really in the team, employed, and we were a team of 8 when we were the most numbered, so to speak. Yeah.
So you're all independents. That's lovely.
Yeah.
I wondered whether there was a structure to your organization.
Yes.
It's very fluid.
In the SFM leadership team, I think a good team number is around 5. We say an NLP 7 plus or minus 2. So I think truly like a you know, like you get beyond 9 people and it starts to get a little cumbersome. You get below 5 people and it's not really a team or as rich of a team. So I think that sort of number 5 to 9 is probably a good, you know, if you can do it, that's the optimal number.
Yeah.
Sergey, did you have
Sergey, did you have
a question?
Yeah.
Yes, you know, it's now is much clear. Become the steps between mindset map coaching and mindset map consulting.
Interesting.
Or
Yes.
generative consulting, which is different than
consulting. Yes, and Mickey make a very good, and you also, yes, make a very good a net for SFM2. Yes, and now I will start to publish with in Russia, and that is why I all times combine how ask the team, how looking their KPI, and how what they think about this process. It is very important for me. Was and another is this is a SFM1, SFM2, and SFM3 combined. Yes, and my job like a consultant is a KPI looking for P&L and another thing is and combine this situation for company and for a personal for personal chief and how to work with him. Yes, and now it is much clear. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sergey. Mickey, one question that came in the chat was about at what stage do you switch between coaching and consulting? And I think it's a little bit tricky to answer this in tonight's presentation, but I think that is one of the things that we do try to, you know, point out in generative consulting is that there is this overlap between coaching and consulting, and and that there's a human-centered and an organizational-centered approach, and the two are not incompatible.
And I would, totally agree 100%. And I would actually say there is no switch. So the idea is basically you're there with your full suite of, you know, offerings. So you are able to coach as a team or as a consultant. You're able to consult. You're able to facilitate a meeting and able to help, you know, generative collaboration. You are a leadership expert because you understand, if you know, you went through SFM3. So basically the idea is to be able to use the right intervention at the right time, and it's pretty much parallel. So they expected us to be consultants, and you know, we said, yeah, sure, that's what we're going to do, but we also want to start with some coaching here. And the coaching, by the way, is going to go throughout the whole process. So I was coaching John until we ended the whole 6 months project. And so there was never really a switch, or now I'm a coach, then I'm going to be a consultant. We said, no, it's a solution to your problem.
I can't talk right now. I have to call
And the solution includes coaching and consulting and facilitating and even training elements, right? So that's kind of how I look at it.
Right. I know it's past our time, so I think it's a good moment to begin to close. But I just also want to say, tomorrow we have the crescendo, which is Jean-Francois and Elizabeth, who will be going over transition with us. And I've just been, I mean, I admit, I mean, of course I'm part of this team, but I've been just totally impressed with the different presentations, and I'm very proud to have these team members with me. But maybe Jean-Francois and Elizabeth, if you want to say a few words about what you'll be doing tomorrow. You have to unmute yourself. Both of you.
Want to go, Elizabeth, or I go?
It's a big surprise.
Well, yeah.
We just want to... Go ahead, Jean-François.
Go ahead.
It's about bringing our multiple intelligence together, our right brain and left brain. Go ahead, Jean-François, please.
Yeah. We really think that when we going in second position, if you are NLP trained, we really thought that you may want to answer the question, how do we involve our clients into multiple intelligence work? Because sometimes it's not that easy for them. So we will answer that question.
You will have to practice.
I know both of you, and you are also very wonderful and delightful presenters. So I'm looking forward to this climax of our book launch meeting for tomorrow. And thank you, Mickey. Really a fabulous presentation. I think we all learned a lot.
Thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to you, all of you becoming. You are already actually agents of generative change in the world. So, just keep shining. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Mickey. Bye.
Awesome. Yeah.
Bye, Mohammed. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Or
Good
good
evening.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Pleasure. Take care.